Forest Hill, a suburb in South London. It's a normal suburb where people live and work. Home to the Horniman Museum, an excellent place to be for our documentary on taxonomy. It's time to introduce Dr. Emma Louise Nichols, Deputy Curator of Natural History at the Horniman Museum. Hello Emma. Thank you for joining us this morning. The museum has a varied range of exhibits built up over the last century, but the most fascinating section is the natural history exhibit. Can you tell us a bit about the collection and its relevance to studying taxonomy at GCSE and A-level?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for letting me be part of your video. So Horniman was a Victorian collector, philanthropist, and very famous for the tea trade, of course. And he collected, as you mentioned, a number of different things, musical instruments, anthropological objects, but most importantly, natural history specimens. And in 1898, he'd collected such a huge amount that he opened a museum. He opened his house, his own house, as a museum, much to the chagrin of his wife, I think. That was in 1898. It's called Surrey House Museum. In the first year, it got 42,500 visitors, which is very impressive, but it outgrew the house because he carried on collecting. And so he then demolished it and built this museum, which opened in 1901, just 5 years before he passed away. So the Natural History Gallery, you asked me about the taxonomy. The gallery upstairs, the balcony, is actually arranged taxonomically. So if you're studying taxonomy and systematics, rather than go to the library and use books or look on the internet, as you probably do these days rather, you can actually come to this museum and you can see the taxonomy laid out in front of you. Over to the left behind us, we've got the invertebrates, and over to the right behind me we've got the vertebrates, and they're laid out in order, starting with kingdom, going down through phylum, family, down to species, so that you can see, and with actual specimens to show you what a number of examples would look like.
So it's thanks to Frederick Horniman and his desire to collect curiosities and artefacts to bring the world to Forest Hill to educate local people. We are now on the ground floor of the Natural History exhibition, and we have moved away from the smaller animals we saw in the upper gallery. This lower gallery houses a vast array of exhibits, many of which date back to Victorian times. In fact, there's an interesting feel to this exhibit. This really is a place where we can learn about the advances in classification, taxonomy and ecology, whilst walking through a time capsule that stands monument to the Victorian and Edwardian desire to collect and learn. In fact, I'm now standing in front of one of Forest Hill's oldest and best-loved residents. Taxonomists and members of the Linnaean Society may know this chap as Odobinus Rosmasus. To tell us more about this exhibit, I would like to introduce Emma.
So in the exhibit behind me, we've got a number of great apes. We've got orangutans, chimpanzees, and gorillas. And a lot of people use the phrase humans evolved from monkeys, and that came, of course, from Darwinism. Whilst it's not entirely inaccurate, it's not the best way of explaining it. Essentially, what this exhibit is showing, the similarities between them, it's not saying that they're the same things. We are not a type of orangutan, say. The way that primate and human evolution has worked is, if you imagine it like a ladder, you can either go up the side, up the long side, or you can get off and sit on a rung. So if you imagine an animal, a hominid, that's something that looks like these. So before the monkeys, before the prosimians, which is the lemurs, and of course before great apes, which includes us, it would have changed and adapted into an animal that came off onto one of those rungs on the ladders and stayed there, so the lemurs. The common ancestor, as we call it, would have carried on up the side, and it would have evolved into, say, the monkeys, so they would have come off. So monkeys are not on the side, they've come off and evolved into monkeys. If you then continue up, you get the great apes, and if you continue up to the top, then you get humans. So we haven't come from monkeys, humans and monkeys have come from a common ancestor.
The Horniman Museum is an amazing place with an ornamental garden, live alpaca and sheep, an excellent music exhibition and a big anthropology hall. I would finally like to thank the Horniman Museum for letting me come and make my documentary, and Dr. Emma Louise Nichols for telling us about her work at the museum.